This is my opinion. This is my personal opinion. I can't prove it necessarily, but I believe it. I believe a saved man's going to love his wife more than an unsaved ever could, It's built into a saved person, man or woman. It's built into a saved person because you get born again to sacrifice. To be willing to sacrifice. What Apostle Paul said? Paul said, I'm willing to spend and be spent for the church, for the body of Christ, to get the good news out. He was willing to spend and be spent. And everything's a fractal. So God had called him to give the message to the church, So God put that love for the church in him. And if everything's a fractal, so a saved man is going to have that same kind of love for his wife and his kids, his church, his whoever he's responsible for or under his authority, Spend and be spent. When you are in authority over people and you see that these people are on your team and they're trying to help build up a business, a home, church, family, whatever, you would think it's just only normal to be willing to spend and be spent for that. It's kind of like a captain going down with a ship, right? The captain is more than happy to go down with a ship if he's got a crew that really cares. But if you had a ship of people who were trying to destroy you and hated you, like the women's lib movement, if you were married to a women's libber, if you're saved, you probably wouldn't be married to one unless they fooled you and you got pulled in. But you would have that initially. But the fact that you're married to a women's liver, that would kind of like, you would hope the best. Kind of like Moses' wife took off. Like some people say Apostle Paul was married at once. His wife probably took off. We know Eve ran to the devil. Adam and Eve. Eve took off, went to the devil. And so there's saved women who their husbands went off the deep end. But if you see all the patterns throughout from Genesis to Revelation, you see Israel, God, the nation Israel, left God, got into trouble, run back to God. Hosea and Gomer left Hosea, went into slavery, went back to Hosea. Every time she would leave, she'd go into slavery to somebody. So every time Israel left God, they'd go into problems and they'd run back to God. Moses' wife left. Apostle Paul, if he was married, she's gone. It's like, the guy who wrote the book Pilgrim's Progress, he went on that journey and everybody left him. Everybody just abandoned him, family, wife, kids, everything. Everybody abandoned him because he was on that spiritual journey that it's a lonely road down here at times, because even if you join a church, most people in church are not even saved. They're not born again. And it's true, because every time you go in there, they don't talk about what God is revealing to them or showing them, or all they talk about is football and basketball, and that's all they talk about. If I was to go into a local church right now, and I was to say, they would actually kick me out, even though it would help them if they'd listen. If I went into a local church, they'd look at me like they would look at me like I was crazy. I said, they were sitting up there talking or something. Did God reveal anything to you? Which they would never ask that because they don't care. I'd raise my hand. Yeah, God revealed something to me today. And they'd say, okay, stand up. What is it? Well, God revealed to me that everything is a word. And the preacher would roll his eyes. He'd say, what do you mean? Everything is a word. Jesus is the word, and everything in front of you is a word. That curb, you don't even need to know the name of the curb. The fact that you know that if it's telling you something. That curb is speaking to stay in the boundaries. That house doesn't even need the name house. That house is a word. You know that's a place that people live. You don't even have to have a word for it because it's a word of itself. That car doesn't even need a name because you watch people get in it, and it's the fact that it's shaped and it's got tires, it's a word in itself. You don't even need a word for the car because the car itself is its own word. When you see that lady walking or you see anybody walking, you know that's a human. That's a person. You don't need to even have a name for the person. You just know it's a person. You know it's another human walking around. That tree, I don't even need a name for it. I know it's a tree. You just know it. Like if you have a fence up, you don't even need the name fence. Okay, so there's a fence right there. You know it's a boundary. It's a barrier to keep you from walking on the grass or whatever. It's a boundary. It doesn't need a name. It's a name in and of itself. That trash can over there, you know by the shape of it what it is, just looking at it. You don't need a word. Like when I'm scanning here, I'm not thinking car, trash can, house, grass. I don't need to think the word. I just see it and I know what it is because it's a word in itself. The object itself is a word. So if I was sitting there and I stood up in church and said, well, God revealed to me that everything is a word, all shapes, all symbols, all colors, all phonics, everything. See, that car is moving. I know that car was moving. I don't need a word to say it's moving. I just know it's moving. I don't need a word for that. It's a word of itself. But it's good to have a word to be able to have a communication with somebody else, but you don't need the word. Like this bottle here. Okay, let's say you were in China and all this writing was in Chinese and you didn't speak Chinese, but somebody handed you this, but it's all Chinese writing. Somebody handed you this. You would know 99% sure that it's water because you've seen other people drinking it and they didn't get drunk, so you know it's not white lightning or moonshine. So you would, and you knew that it was either water or moonshine. It's probably water, right? And this, you don't even need the Chinese language. So you're in China and you don't speak Chinese, but you don't need somebody to tell you that's plastic in Chinese. You know it's plastic. You know what it is. It's a word in itself. Come on now. And so if I said that and I explained that, and this is deep revelation, it's been here our whole life. Because if I tell you everything is a word, that tells you that everything is from Jesus, because Jesus is the word, the Logos. The Logos word. The Logos word and the Rhema word. The static and the action. Just like calculus. You have static math and then you got calculus that explains velocity and acceleration. Everything is a word. When you point your finger, I'm not saying anything, but imagine you were sitting here beside me and I went, you wouldn't even need to hear me say, look at that. You would just look. I would look at you in the eyes and I'd do this. real fast. If I did like this, you would know to look over there really fast. There's something important over there to look at. I didn't use words. We're just sitting here and I go, hey, look, I didn't say anything, but you knew what I was thinking. You knew what I was saying without me saying anything, because that's a word. Body language is a word. Everything is a word. So I stand up and I tell the preacher, God revealed to me everything is a word. Everything. And he'd say, well, anybody else got anything to say that God revealed to them? And I'd stand up and say, he showed me something else. All right, what else did he show you? Every person is per the Son. The words reveal the whole truth. Every word has deep spiritual truth encoded in the word itself. The word is within the word. The seed is within the seed. The truth is within the truth. From him, through him, and to him. It's a holographic fractal reality. And every person is per the Son. That's why it's P-R Son. And you'd say, see that door right there? Get out of here. That's what he would say. Because you have more revelation than him. And he can't handle it. Because he can't even hear you. And you say, oh, you're a called preacher, but you can't hear what I just said? You should be falling down on your face and praising God that God revealed this to somebody. Every person is per the Son. And that in itself is serious revelation that has been brought to the surface in this age. It's all from him, through him, and to him. So it all points to him. You don't need me to tell you what that is right there. You know that's offense without me even saying it. Because it's a word.